Welcome back to KTN Prime. As hinted earlier, it's now time for the deliberations right here in studio. We're honored to be hosting Eugene Wamalwa, who's the party leader of the Democratic Action Party of Kenya, abbreviated as DAP Kenya. He's equally a former cabinet secretary, serving in different capacities in previous administration, and he happens to be the United Alternative Government co-principal. Bwana Waziri, if I can still call you that, karibu sana to our studios.
Asante sana.
It's great to have you with us, and we're having this conversation at a time when so much is happening in the country. And of course, we'll be picking your mind on one or two issues that are of utmost importance to the Kenyan citizen. But perhaps let's start on a different note before things get rather serious.
Yes.
Many remember your brother, the late Michael Wamalwa Kijana. And he's remembered for standing for democracy, people-centered leadership, free from ethnic division. And I happen to have heard that there's an anniversary celebration happening in Kitale this particular Sunday, happening to be the 23rd anniversary since his passing on. Perhaps speak to the symbolism of this particular anniversary, which is coming at a time, as we said, Kenya is facing heightened political activity.
Yes, on 23rd of August was the day that we lost him. We were in London, Hampstead, Royal Free Hospital. And we have since the 23rd of August 2003 been marking this anniversary with Holy Mass at home in his compound. And we've had His Lordship Maurice Anthony Crawley actually presiding over this mass for over 20 years now. He's now retired, but we are very, very honored that this Sunday on the 23rd, he will be with us in Kitale to preside over that mass. And we have invited leaders from across the political divide. And we will, in this anniversary, also be launching a book that will epitomize his journey in politics, in service as a barrister and as a lecturer of law. We will be celebrating all this by launching this book this Sunday. So we'll be welcoming his friends, his colleagues, his comrades who worked with him, and amongst those that we have invited. And we are truly honored to have him sign the foreword for this book is His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, who was not just a family friend, but a colleague and a friend of his at some point. He had invited him to be his running mate, but he ended up running against him with Kibaki. And we'll be so honored to have him sign this book and launch it on Sunday, as well as some of the colleagues he worked with, like Charity Ngilu. You remember when they started NAK with Mwai Kibaki? Both Kibaki and Wamalwa are gone, but Charity is with us, and this Sunday she'll be coming to remind us of the journey. People like James Orengo, who worked with him, who walked with him. So across the political divide, from the government to the alternative government, and also Linda Mwananchi, we expect friends to come and celebrate with us. But we will also be using that remembrance to remember what he stood for. He was generally a peacemaker. He was a unifier. And he abhorred violence. He was a gentleman. Actually, him and Kibaki were known as the gentlemen of our politics. So at a time such as this, when the country has this cloud of goonism, violence, political intolerance, and rising, rhetoric, divisive, ethnicized politics, I think this is such a time that would have needed him. That voice of reason, that voice that brought Kenyans together across the political divide, and that urged us to embrace our diversity, not as a weakness, but as strength of our republic. So I think we miss him at such a time as this.
Indeed. Well, his spirit still lives on, and we'll be curious to see what happens on Sunday. And of course, as members of the Fourth Estate, will be there to cover the proceedings as they occur. You've mentioned matters to do with goonism, and I'd like us to talk about political intolerance, because we've seen divisive rhetoric, incitement, which is quite unacceptable in a constitutional democracy like ours. because political competition should not be confused with personal hostility.
At all.
You know, political differences should be settled through ideas, through the ballot, and not through violence and chaos, as has been witnessed time and time again.
Yes.
I'd like you to react to the front page of Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, because tomorrow we pose a statement, not even a question, that perhaps Kenyans are on their own. Let's take a look at the front page of tomorrow's edition of Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, just for the benefit of our viewers back at home, because we definitely highlight key instances that are played out time and time again, and there's a need for accountability from the populace in terms of credible action being taken against those responsible for the instances of chaos in the country. There you have it, the front page of tomorrow's edition of The Standard, on your own. Some of the faces of the individuals leading institutions that perhaps could have cracked the whip by now to ensure we do not slide into a state of anarchy. So are Kenyans on their own generally?
They shouldn't be, because we are a constitutional democracy, and actually this country has one of the most progressive constitutions, not just in Africa, but across the world. And that constitution has institutions. If we just allowed those institutions to work and we all defended the constitution, we would not have any problem. Like they say, katiba inatiba. Hiyo katiba inatiba for everything and anything to do with governance, to do with you know, the equitable sharing of resources through devolution, and what we should, how we should live as Kenyans. So the problem that we are having is that we have departed from that path of being a country and a government and a people under the rule of law. And we have actually, we are literally descending into a society where the rule of the jungle applies, where the strongest will have their way. And this is what we are seeing now. All we need to do is just go back and learn from what our past teaches us. 2007, 2008, what we suffered as a country was a crisis of confidence in our institutions. Key amongst these institutions was the Electoral Commission, then the judiciary. And when we lost faith in these institutions and we said, these are results, we are not accepting them. ICK ambayo has been compromised, and we're not going to this court bandia. So we took that dispute to the streets. What was the result? Thousands lost their lives, billions worth of property was wasted. Our economy that was doing so well, you remember when Kibaki, Wamalwa, Ngilu took over under NARC, our economy was doing very badly. We were at ground zero, almost 0 point something. But in a record 5 years, we were able to grow the economy up to about a rate of about 7.1%. But come the post-election violence of 2007, 2008, we went down. And it took years to recover. So we want to urge that where we have a constitution, that constitution by itself, right from the preamble, it recognizes and acknowledges God as the Supremo and who has blessed all of us to be in this country. None is more Kenyan than the other. This country belongs to all of us. And it's by, not by choice, it's by the blessing we enjoy from God. This is our land, this is our country. That same constitution also recognizes our diversity. And we celebrate our diversity, whether it is tribal, whether it is cultural, whether it is religious. We are a diverse country. But that is the beauty of a rainbow. It's in the diversity of its colors. And we also look at the recognition of our aspirations as Kenyans to have a government that is under the rule of law, that respects human rights and the freedoms each one of us enjoy. If we were just to abide by that constitution, we will not be where we are today, because that same constitution gives us the freedoms to express ourselves, to associate with others, to join any political party, because we have political rights under Article 38, and freedom of movement, to move in any part of the republic. and also the freedom to enter, reside on property in any part of Kenya. So no one can tell you today that don't come to Homa Bay, you don't belong here because you're not a Luo, or don't go to Bungoma because you are not a Luya. This whole country belongs to us, and we are all Kenyans. So the minute that constitution is respected, we will not have the situation we are in today. But we will need a government that by itself will bring back this country to that path of the rule of law and constitutionalism. It is lacking now. Because when you have the government itself tolerating gangs coming together, and you see armed goons working together with the police, right from the Gen Z revolution of 2024, these young Kenyans came out to protest against the high taxes. They protested against the finance bill and the policies of this government. What did we do? We unleashed the police on them. Then these police were accompanied by goons. You could see goons armed with rungus, pangas, walking alongside the police and attacking these young people who are unarmed. They had smartphones, they had water, they had the Kenyan flag. They were not armed. But from that point on, it has almost become a normal thing to see police officers and goons on the same side attacking citizens. Perhaps because they come from a different party or they are of a different persuasion. Perhaps they are one term and others are two term. As recent as these Keumbu incidents, we had pictures, and we must thank you, the media. And I must say, we are very proud as a country of the Standard and KTN Media House, because the Standard has set standards of being bold and speaking truth to power, and also being able to unmask some of these goons and some of these rogue officers who have gone into bed, and an unholy alliance between the government officers and the goons. Yeah. So the minute you have goons and the government entering that unholy alliance, then we cease to have a government of the people, for the people, by the people, under the rule of law. What we are seeing in Kenya today is a phenomenon I would call a goonverment. A goonverment is an unholy alliance between goons and the government. So we depart from that path of the rule of law, and we now engage in the rule of the jungle. This is where the problem is. But let's go back to our constitution and let us walk that path, the narrow and straight path.
Speaking about the constitution, because we hear about the spirit and the letter of the constitution.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it seems that some of these independent institutions may not be so independent. We've had calls from the opposition that perhaps there's political interference in the running of the day-to-day affairs of, let's talk about the Director of Criminal Investigation in terms of how they crack the whip on some of these excesses on the political scene. How do you rate the independence and that specter of accountability when it comes to holding those who have involved themselves in instances of political intolerance to account?
I think we have institutions that are not independent when they're supposed to be. If they were to just discharge their duties, constitutional mandates independently, we would not have this problem. But we are going back to that era where we had an overbearing executive, and you have a compromised parliament, then you have a feeble judiciary, because that's the last line of defense for the citizens, the judiciary. So when these institutions start failing in terms of their effectiveness, in terms of their independence, then we have problems, because it is the executive now, the overbearing executive now calling shots and dictating everything. The parliament will do whatever the executive directs, and the courts are not able to hold accountable those who have transgressed. And that being the last line of defense for the citizen, where in our national anthem we pray that justice be our shield and defender. The minute the judiciary ceases to be that shield and defender, then the citizen has nowhere to run to. And this is not just about the three institutions, not just about the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. We're also talking about the independent institutions. They are no longer independent. We put a lot into judicial reforms when I was Minister for Justice to restore that public confidence in our judiciary. And I can tell you, when I was Minister for Justice, we worked very closely with CJ Mutunga. We worked very closely with DCJ Nancy Baraza, Professor Guido Muigai as the AG. A lot went into those judicial reforms under Kibaki as president, Kalonzo as vice president, and Raila as prime minister. So the judicial reforms that followed the implementation of the new constitution actually restored that public confidence. Then the other issue was now to see how we could institute police reforms, because this is where the problem is. And what we intended under the new constitution was a transformation from a brutal police force to a police service that would be deeply rooted in professionalism, that will respect human rights, and serve the people. But what we are having now is a slide back to that police force, where the police is now used against the citizen. But if they were allowed to operate according to their constitutional mandate now, and they allow that independence, we would see a different Kenya today. We would not see the brutality we are seeing in where citizens are exercising the right under Article 37 to protest against bad policies, bad laws, and they come to crush them, shoot them, use live bullets. Then after they finish killing these young people, you are told, shoot them in the legs now. Now, the minute you start doing that and you go on abducting, using the police, mass police to abduct the same young people, then you have enforced disappearances, you have torture that is now back, then something has gone terribly wrong. So what do we do about this? What we would need is a government that would actually go back to the path of the rule of law and ensure that the institutions under our constitution work according to their constitutional mandate. Okay. And that can be done because we have reforms that were recommended. You remember Justice Ransley, the Ransley report on police reforms. There were very specific reforms to reform the police. Recently, we had Justice Maraga heading another team. There were recommendations made, and I remember Maraga submitted this report way back, was it in 2023, 2024? Yeah. The other day he was telling us that report is is gathering dust somewhere, but if we were to start by saying let us complete the police reforms, what happened to Ransley report, what is the Maraga report recommending? And if we are able to just reform the police and allow the judicial reforms to be completed, we enhance the independence of the judiciary, the financing of the judiciary, we will see more change coming in terms of public confidence in these institutions. And I would end by saying that the problem we are having is an overbearing executive and almost a strong man kind of leadership in terms of not respecting the independence of the other institutions. And what Barack Obama said once in Ghana is that what Africa needs, and this is what Kenya needs, are not strong men, but strong institutions. That can be done if we have a leadership that respects, upholds, defends the Constitution, and allows the institutions under that Constitution to work independently. I don't think that is the current leadership that we have.
I guess it starts with political goodwill and
from the top.
From the top, and
yes.
That's lacking.
It's totally lacking, and I do not, because we have a president who really opposes this constitution. I do not think he believes in this constitution. I do not think he even understands it, because if he did, Kenya would be a different country. All we need is a president who would start from that point, because everything stands and falls on leadership, on governance. Once we fix the governance, everything else will fall in place. Because we have it all right from the equitable sharing of the national cake through devolution. We need a president who believes in devolution, because that same devolution holds the key to a more just Kenya, a more equitable Kenya, and a more inclusive Kenya. All we would need is someone who believes in that devolution and that constitution to implement. we'll have a better country.
Indeed. Speaking
Yes.
of governance, I'd like to bring it closer home to DAP Kenya.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, we've heard from the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Kipchumba Murkomen, who's pointed a blaming finger at the political class for financing organized criminal gangs and goons. So in the spirit of accountability, since you're a member of the political class, what verifiable mechanisms perhaps does DAP Kenya use to ensure its own local organizers and its candidates do not go that way of hiring or mobilizing these criminal groups? Because at times we would try and look at what will sort of persuade these political actors not to go towards that route. So what mechanisms are there from your party to at least ensure that, you know, you're away, you keep away from meddling in goonism and political intolerance?
I think I would agree with C.S. Murkomen that goonism is not a preserve of government because it cuts across. It's like corruption, really. You can't say now that we're in the opposition, we are angels, only those in government are corrupt, because it takes two to tango, really. There are those, there's a giver and the receiver of bribes. And just like corruption, the violence, the goonism cuts across. So we are saying that I think a time is coming when, not just as DAP Kenya, but as Kenyans, we must take responsibility and know that this seed of goonism that we are planting will consume all of us. Because they say in Kiswahili, ukipanda upepo utavuna tufani. If you plant the wind, you will reap the whirlwind. So if we are all looking at this seed of goonism being planted before our own eyes, and we are doing nothing about it, we are going to reap the whirlwind of chaos and anarchy in this country. So it takes all of us to start saying no. Let's start by really unmasking those who are behind these goons. Who are their financiers? Who are their mobilizers? Who are those who are organizing these goons? And it takes leaders who are in parties, who are in certain regions, who know these young people and who talk to them and who take advantage of their unemployment to actually hire them to do these jobs. So how do we deal with this? I think let us start by acknowledging that we have a youth unemployment crisis in this country. I think looking at the, was it the federal employers organization, they were saying almost 67% unemployment rate in this country is turning into a crisis, a ticking time bomb. Because you have many young people, many who have been to school, passed exams, have papers, but they have no jobs. So they are idle out there. And I came across one, I think I was in one of the counties, and a watchman walked up to me and he told me he has a degree, but he has no job. So he has been wearing this uniform as a watchman with some security firm, because he's knocked on all doors with his degree. He can't get a job in Kenya. So he's a watchman. So when you look at him, you think this is mtu hivi, but ni mtu ameenda shule, amepita. They have papers. So this hopelessness that is setting in is making these young people fodder for the warlords who are actually financing and using them against their opponents. Exactly. I think this is something we all need to come up and say to nip this in the bud. First of all, action must be taken against the financiers and the organizers. But the root cause of all this is the unemployed youths who are roaming the streets and who have lost hope and they have nothing to lose. You give them 2,000, 3,000, they'll bring you someone's head. So this is where we must direct in terms of policies. And we must depart from this tokenism. You come up, hustler fund, you think now this is going to sort out these young people. You have youth enterprise fund, what is being committed there is very little. The impact is not being felt. So we've had tokenism in terms of half-baked measures to address these issues. But in the past, I must say, you've asked me as DAP Kenya, as a leader in this country, because it starts with me. It's not enough to point fingers at the government. This is a societal problem. And it was there even when we were in government ourselves. It didn't start with this government. So we must start by saying, how do we nip this in the bud? We must go to the root cause of this, which is that unemployment and youth hopelessness. And in my time, I'm very, very proud, I can say this tonight, that I came up with one of the bills that was a precursor to the AGPO, which is Access to Government Opportunities and Procurement Act. I was the initiator of that bill. And at the time, Uhuru Kenyatta was Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance. And he told me this is a good bill, and I'll support it. In fact, at the time, because we were coming to the end of the 10th Parliament, he said, because how wazee wanaenda nyumbani, we are going to take over this government. We'll make it 30%. And Uhuru Kenyatta kept his word. That is how we came up with this 30% AGPO access to government procurement opportunities for the youth. But what is happening now, because when we left Parliament, my friend Sakaja is the one who completed that. But this AGPO thing, and you're talking of over 200, 300 billion worth of procurement opportunities, money that should go into the pocket of these young people. The problem is the implementation. So it would take a leadership that would move away from the tokenism and go to real policy, youth-centered policies that can transform their lives. Say from each ministry, where have you allocated these tenders? What percentage have you given to the youth of this country? The 47 governors, when I sit as your president, I'll be looking at, okay, what have you done in your counties? Because you find that most of the scandals you're seeing now, you find that a governor is giving tenders to his relatives, some to his side chicks, and, friends and cronies. But the young people in these counties are not getting real opportunities through this act. Yet, this should be the fruits of devolution. When you say pesa mfukoni, this is how you put money in the pockets of these young people. Turn them from job seekers to job creators through opportunities that are there. And that needs to be addressed, because what you saw in Homa Bay, the violence, I think I encountered that violence in Malava. I led the campaigns of DAP Kenya in Malava. And what we saw, the confrontation, the level of violence, the armed goons that were moving around, hired from all over Kisumu, Nairobi, they all descended on Malava. And I was almost killed in my candidate. Our vehicles were burned, young people were killed. But Homa Bay went to another level. And it was organized. We know members of parliament, like in Akaluma, whose utterances are recorded. Gladys Wanga, the governor, the kind of threats they were making, the mobilization that was being done in broad daylight, in Raila Odinga Stadium, at the airstrip. But when our brothers in Linda Mwananchi walked in, they walked into a trap, because the ground was prepared, the goons were had, and were ready to go. So where we have reached, it's a matter of accountability. Okay. So apart from looking at the real empowerment, it's not enough to just say you want power. We want a paradigm shift from power politics to politics of empowerment. You do that through policies that are transformative, not tokenism that we're seeing in this. And we believe when we get back to parliament, when we get back to government by next year, we have the policies, we know where to start, we know what is fixing, and it starts with that. Fixing the youth problem, the ticking time bomb, and finger pointing is not going to change the problem. Thank you.
Well, I'm tempted to ask matters to do with implementation of that 30% of procurement contracts going to the youth. Does it start with goodwill in terms of the political class that will see the actualization of such benefits heading to the marginalized groups, people with disabilities, the youth as well?
And the women.
Yes,
and the women, yes.
Yeah.
It starts with goodwill.
Okay.
And it will start with the governor of that county.
All right.
But when we have people who are just hell-bent on filling their own pockets with their relatives, with their sidekicks, then the youth are denied that chance. So it is a framework that needs strengthening. Because I remember when I proposed this amendment to our Procurement Act, we're borrowing largely from the South African experience. And this can be implemented, and it must start at the head of state level, because it will be him whipping his ministers to ensure that that implementation is being done. Then at the IBEC level, you have interaction between the two levels of government. There can be strengthening of that framework to see how implementation is being done.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
And we could even bring in the controller of budget and the other institutions. There are many ways that this can be worked out.
Checks and balances.
Yes.
Okay. You earlier on mentioned about actually cracking the whip on political goonism, and we've had rhetoric from the security agencies' top officials. We've had rhetoric from the president in terms of family dealing with criminality, but there's still heavy public skepticism and political criticism of either selective justice or no justice at all when it comes to finding the financiers and prosecuting them. In your case, why do you think law agencies consistently fail to trace and prosecute the political elite that are behind these instances of organized violence? Is it still a lack of political goodwill? What's the issue here?
No, it is the politics. It is the politics, because if these are government-sponsored goons, in a way they are embedded in the police, and in some cases the police are embedded in the goons. So this government phenomenon that I'm talking about is an existential threat to a democracy, because when government enters into an unholy alliance with the goons, then the same government would protect these goons as their agents to do their dirty work, where they will not use the police. They will send the police, then they'll send the goons, then have a backup of the police to work with those goons. And we encountered this. I remember we were coming into Chwele, and we encountered a big team of goons that attacked my convoy, and I was hosting my colleagues, Nakalonzo, Rigiji, and the team, Matiangi. Then when our security now went to, confront these goons, behind them there were police officers, because they started firing, and they were firing live bullets. And we realized this thing was organized. So it's not just an easy issue of saying, let's hold these, because these goons are agents of the same system that is protecting them. So I think the way we can deal with it, first of all, before you come to the security aspect, there is the inflammatory statements that are being made. There is the mobilization and incitement that is being done prior to the actual, act. If you look at Homa Bay, it took about 2 weeks of these statements being made. You go back to the 1992, 1997 tribal clashes, there were statements that were made. Enosopukia, lie low like envelopes. Tutatoa kwekwe. They are referring to communities, statements inflammatory made by politician leaders in certain regions, threatening certain communities. Because you are not one of us, you are madoadoa in this area, na tunaenda kutoa nini? This is the language that needs to be nipped in the bud. Because before the fire consumes, there must be the pouring of the petrol first. They douse the whole place. Then there's the one who now lights the match. Yeah. Then the fire blows up. I think there are stages. So that is why we are saying our institutions are not working. The National Cohesion and Integration Commission is not working. And that is where we should start. And we also look at the other bodies. We look at DCI, we look at the IG of police, and we have engaged all these institutions. You come to IEBC. IEBC has powers. In Malava, for example, we know the PSS, the CSS who are distributing mattresses, relief food, bribing voters right in the day. We know the politicians, members of parliament, who actually came with goons and attacked us. Names were given, statements were written. Those members of parliament have never been held accountable, MCS, but IBC has powers. Do you know the most lethal weapon IBC has? Is by telling that politician, we will not clear you to run for that office next time. That is one thing that every politician fears, because every politician wants to be on the ballot. But why are they not cracking the whip? Because they are being very selective. Look at what happened recently. You hear C.S. Duale speaks at certain words. Then you hear another opposition leader speak something in Ol Kalau. They are picked immediately. But the good friend of mine has never recorded a statement. So what we are saying is that there is that selective prosecution and using institutions, weaponizing the criminal justice system. Right. This is where the problem is. But also, I'm very pleased that there are new sheriffs in town. As a member of the Law Society of Kenya, I must say I'm very proud of our new president, Kanjama. They have issued a very clear warning to those of us who are lawyers, no matter who we are, whether we are party leaders, whether we are ministers in government, whether we are in the opposition, but we are still lawyers. Indeed. And every lawyer is sworn to uphold the rule of law. So if you are going to, in whichever capacity you are, violate that oath of office that you took as a lawyer, as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, then the Law Society will take action. Because if you conduct yourself in a manner that is demeaning to your calling, which is a noble calling, there are disciplinary measures that can be taken against you. Now, these are some of the effective measures that we just don't leave it to NCIC that might be compromised by the government of the day. Professional bodies can call in those of us, because we are politicians, yes, but we are lawyers, we are engineers, we are doctors, and we are all in these offices, whether in the opposition or government. A time has come when, I think it's President General de Gaulle who said in France once that there comes a time when war is too serious to be left to the generals. I think where this country has reached, and this threat of goonism, is a menace to our democracy. I think a time is coming when we're saying professional bodies must also come in. And I saw LSK call in Kaluma. And we also, Kagujia was also called in. Indeed. I can tell you today, if your utterances will make you get face misconduct disciplinary measures, and you are kicked off the role of advocates, and you are denied your daily bread, I can tell you there are very many lawyers who are members of parliament who will watch their tongues, knowing very well you're not just dealing with NCIC. LSK is also watching. All the other bodies, or the medical and the engineering. If we can get institutions, because this is about our country, and we are going to lose this country watching, as we plan this, the wind of goonism, very soon we're going to reap the whirlwind of anarchy. This is how Haiti started. And this is how Haiti today is being ruled by goons. It's just started like this, like what we saw in Homa Bay. People being told, you're not wanted here. Get out. There's one young girl who comes from my area. She's called Agneta, a Gen Z who's fighting to be a women rep. And I've been mentoring and encouraging young people, starting with PK Selassie. There are a lot of people who are inspired by Selassie. They've come out. And this girl has come out so bravely. And she went to Homa Bay. What happened to her was very traumatizing. She was one of the victims that was cut by pangas, and she disappeared for days. We were looking for her. We thank God she was found. She was traumatized, and there are many such young people who want to believe that we live in an open democratic society. You can go anywhere in Kenya and sell your policies, but what happened in Homa Bay was a nightmare. So this needs to be done, nipped in the bud now. They say as teaching time saves 9. Unless we teach this, Waswahili wanasema usipoziba ufa, utajenga ukuta. That's where we are tonight.
And perhaps that's why members of the opposition were inviting the International Criminal Court to probe goonism. Just yesterday we heard from Martha Karua, PLP party leader, on this particular matter, and it warranted a reply from the National Assembly Majority Leader, Kimani Ichung'wah, who today said it's hypocritical to call for ICC's intervention, yet some opposition leaders are behind the arming of young men. Listen to the sentiments shared.
We call upon the office of the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, ICC, to closely monitor developments in Kenya and to undertake a preliminary assessment of whether credible information exists warranting examination under the Rome Statute, especially against the person bearing the greatest responsibility, namely President William Samoei Ruto, a former ICC inductee, and to review and determine the status of the previous charges against him.
Mambo ya uhuni of goonism. Jambo lilinishangaza, Martha Karua anasoma statement ameandikiwa, mwenye amesimama nyuma yake ni James Orengo. James Orengo ndiye anabeba wahuni, wamebeba mapanga vile mliona Homa Bay. So let us also not be hypocrites. And I want to tell our brothers and our sisters in the opposition, I want to join them in welcoming ICC to come and investigate that matter of goonism.
I'd like your reply to the sentiments shared by Kimani Ichung'wah, because mind you, there are instances where opposition politicians are on record saying alleged police inaction during their rallies warrants declarations to defend themselves and counter the disruptions.
I think it's really about our painful history. Again, going back to what happened in 2007, 2008, the pattern is there, and we see it going down that road. And we can only end up in one place, the ICC. And it would be very unfortunate if Kenya was to go back to the ICC, because I was there, and it was traumatizing, flying all those miles away to a very cold place to face justice away from home. But the levels of violence that we are seeing, the pattern, the coordination, the escalation of this violence, because we have been there. Particularly Rigiji has been a target, and they followed him right into church. You remember what happened in Witima, here in Nairobi, Kariobangi, and you find that the church, which should be a sanctuary of peace, even in war, when you run to the church, they leave you, because that is where you should seek refuge. But in a country where even women and children are not safe, in the house of God, in the house of prayer, something has gone terribly wrong. And I think we are reaching the level that unless we actually address this thing, not by finger pointing, and I want to agree with my friend Kimani Ichung'wah, you can't just say this is a government problem. No, it's a societal problem, and we must all be ready to address it in a way that we remember 2007, 2008. It's not just the government that ended up at The Hague. The opposition ended up at The Hague. Well. You remember from the opposition, we had William Ruto from ODM, we had Sang, we had Henry Koskei. Then from the government side, we had Uhuru Kenyatta, we had IG or Police General Ali. You remember we had the head of public service, Ambassador Muthaura. So this thing, it's a double-edged sword that cuts both ways. So tonight, let us not say finger pointing is going to resolve this thing. We have a problem, which if we don't nip in the bud now, it can consume all of us. There was a story of this young man who went hunting in the morning on the back of a tiger with a big smile on his face, because he was riding on the back of a tiger, going to hunt, knowing very well they would succeed. In the evening, they both came back. But this time, the smile was on the face of the tiger, and the young hunter was in the stomach of the tiger. Kenya is riding on the back of the tiger. This tiger of goonism is going to consume all of us. So I think a time is coming, and this is why as opposition leaders, we have called for a consultative forum to address this issue of electoral violence in Kenya. And we want to bring everybody on board. We want a round table where we can sit together, not just the opposition, not just politicians. We want the religious leadership, civil society to come back. And we sit together at a round table and we say, come, in the words of Prophet Isaiah, let us reason together. How do we stop this menace? Because it's going to consume all of us. It started like this in Haiti. They lost control, both in government and in the opposition. This violence and good will consume all of us. So there must be a point where we say this far and no further.
Indeed.
Yes.
And it warrants upon us, including Kenyans
Yes.
from all walks of life, to call out this goonism
Correct.
issue with the seriousness it deserves. But equally, there needs to be action. And that's why perhaps the opposition has been quite critical of the security officials
Yes.
in terms of perhaps calling them out for their incompetence. Do you agree with such statements that perhaps more could be done by these security officials as
Definitely.
we finalize on this?
Definitely, and this is what we told IG Kanja with the top police leadership. And we told him that at the end of the day, he shall be held accountable. And if he allows the police to be misused by this regime, there will be another regime that will come. And you know, unlike in civil matters, in criminal matters, the statute of limitation does not apply. So whatever is being done now, we have told IG Kanja, you can end up at The Hague, where General Ali ended up. So don't allow yourself and the officers to be misused.
Indeed.
And let's just follow the law. Let's just defend our constitution and discharge our constitutional mandates as institutions mandated by this constitution. Right. If we were to just follow that, this country will be better off.
Okay. Eugene, let's talk about matters politics right now.
Yes.
It would be a disservice to you to have you here and not wade into the murky world of politics.
Yes.
Perhaps we start with it being the political season of defections.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure you've seen the musical chairs that are playing in the political space. Some argue it's due to self-preservation tactics as the 2027 general election nears. But I'd like to start closer home, because as DAP Kenya, you faced a couple of defections, most notably Ayub Sevula, who moved from DAP. We equally had the Trans Nzoia governor, George Natembeya, who decided to call it quits in terms of his relations with the DAP Kenya party due to irreconcilable differences of a leadership style. That's what's out there. Kindly clear the air since you're here. There's some who credit his exit as perhaps you being afraid of his rising political influence in the region that could perhaps erode your national bargaining power. Set the record straight.
Not at all. Governor Natembeya is a first-term governor who is seeking a second term. And he's not my competitor in any way. And he's not my contemporary politically. He's my son politically. I raised him in politics. I introduced him to politics. And he's doing well. Let him take time to mature politically. And I wish him well. I'm not aware that he has left my party. I'm his party leader. He has not resigned up to now. I know that he has been with us in the United Alternative Government, and we've been working together. And lately he's working closely with Linda Mwananchi, with our brother Edwin Sifuna. And we are all still on the same side. He has not moved from our side. Because whether you're in Linda Mwananchi, you're saying one term, or you're in the United Alternative Government, you're saying one term. So we're still on the same side, the one-term side.
What about
we are
sibling
working
rivalry?
on? No, there's no rivalry.
Uh-huh.
I'm seeking the presidency, he's seeking governorship. So we have no axe to grind. And I'm saying he's not my competitor. He's not my contemporary politically. I'm his senior politically. I'll be his political father. I'm the one who brought him into politics. And I'm wishing him well as he seeks his second term as governor of Trans Nzoia. I wish him well. And as far as I'm concerned, he's still my deputy in the party, and he's still my governor. He has not resigned. As and when he resigns, we'll now look at who will run against him. That will be his rival, not me. But it's the people of Trans Nzoia who make that decision. And as a party, we shall respect it, as and when the decision is made. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Ayub Savula is the one who defected from my party. He was my deputy party leader, and he moved to UDA. So as we speak today, Ayub Savula is a two-term guy. So we are in opposite camps.
Okay.
And I wish him well. You know, it's his democratic right, and I do not hold any grudge against him. And the only thing I would tell him is that the lay of the land shows that majority of people in Western Kenya are for one term because of many unfulfilled promises. If you look at what my brother Musalia and Weta pushed for, they were promised 30% of government. They were promised 1,000 kilometers of tarmac road in Western. They were promised many things that are still unfulfilled. Starting with the roads, they have not even done 100 kilometers of tarmac in Western. You could see maybe 5 kilometers here, 10 kilometers there. I do not think we have a road of over 50 kilometers anywhere. So people of Western are saying, where is our 30%? Why should we give you another term and you have not fulfilled what you promised us? You promised that you are going to fix all our sugar factories. Nzoia, within 100 days, this president said he will bring a new milling plant. As we speak, no new milling plant. Instead, Nzoia has been sold. And that applies to all the public sugar factories across the sugar belt, all the way to Muhoroni, Miwani, all the way Chemele, all the way to Soni. And you're looking at nuclears, land, ancestral land donated by the Luo and Luya communities to government to create these factories, to create employment for their people. As we speak, these farmers who are promised 100 days they'll be paid all their dues. Up to now, I listened to one of the MPs who is in two-term, David Makali of Kandui. He was on our local FM station, and he actually confirmed that the farmers who are owed in Nzoia have not been paid up to now. This is an election year. 4 years later, no new factory, farmers have not been paid, workers have not been paid, retirees have not been paid. There were new factories in the region that President Uhuru and I had started. One is the gold refinery in Kakamega. It's not been operationalized up to now as we speak. We had a granite factory in Vihiga. So these are the things that, if they worked, would create employment, would address the issue of goonism in Western Kenya, because we have very many young people there who need this employment. And instead of operationalizing the gold refinery, this government is hell-bent on grabbing the gold from Kakamega. And this is where people like Senator Halwale have fought very hard. Malala, I'm very proud of the fearless leaders in the region who have stood up to this government to say, no, go home one time because of your unfulfilled promises. Right. So I would advise Ayub Savula, look again at the lay of the land. Otherwise, you might find yourself in the opposition as we form the next government. Yes. Seems you're applying
scatter none, gather all, yeah?
That is our approach in the opposition. We don't look at our brothers as our enemies. And this is where my late brother Mike was very particular. He would always look at you as his competitor, not as his enemy. And he would always call you my worthy opponent. And he would always believe that, you know, what one of his favorite philosophers was Voltaire, who said that I might disagree with what you say, I might even disagree with you, but I will defend unto death your right to say it. That is the kind of democracy we want to see, mature, sober democracy and leadership. But we are lacking that. I think we have too much insults and violence and chest thumping and, of course, a lot of lies. I must congratulate you once more. Standard, KTN, you have said standard. You know your gallery of lies, man. That was something. That was, I know it got you in a lot of trouble, but you are calling a spade, not a big spoon.
Indeed.
If you have lied about 1,000 kilometers of tarmac road in Western Kenya, you have lied about the stadium in Bomet, you have lied about many other things. This is the year. We are now in the election year. people of Kenya will hold you to account. And if you have not fulfilled your promises,
Okay.
then they'll send you home one time.
Simple.
Yes.
Let's speak about the dynamics playing out in Mulembe politics. On one end, we see President's aide Farouk Kibet camping in that region time and time again. Mudavadi Wetangula trying to reinvigorate their political bases, despite the talk of the old guard versus the young Turks when it comes to Mulembe leadership. The unity of Mulembe Nation has been ridiculed. Critics point to a lack of cohesion, that perhaps this leaves this large voting bloc quite vulnerable to be used as a bargaining chip by outsiders. So speak to these competing allegiances and the selfish interests that perhaps may play out as we edge closer to the 2027 general election.
I think it's a fallacy to say that the Luhya are divided, because the people are not divided. They're the leaders who are divided, and mainly in different parties. And right now, I think we are looking at two main formations. There are those who believe William Ruto has done very well. He deserves a second term. We respect their position. There are those of us who feel there are a lot of unfulfilled promises, just like you call them a gallery of lies. I think what we have in Western, right from Kitale all the way to Kisii, in the entire Lake Basin region, is a boulevard of broken promises and unfulfilled pledges. And this is why that entire region of 11 counties is likely to vote one term. And all we are urging is that let us compete on our ideas, our policies. Let the one-town people go to every constituency, every sub-county, every county in the region to sell their one-town agenda. Likewise, allow the two-town teams to move, like you're saying, my big brother Musalia Kinaweta, they're all moving around. True. And we have never seen a situation where we, the one-town people, are attacking Mudavadi or attacking Wetangula or attacking, our two-town brothers. We do not want that kind of politics. Let not violence decide for us. Let our ideas, let our policies, sold in a free and fair environment, allow the people to decide. Let the people decide. Let not our goons or our violence decide for them. This is where we're saying to have free and fair elections. We must allow that freedom of expression, freedom of movement, freedom of association to thrive. And we must allow political rights under Article 38 to be realized by all Kenyans in all of 47 counties. And one of those fundamental principles of our electoral system is that Kenyans should be allowed to elect the leaders they choose in an environment devoid of violence. The minute there is violence and intimidation, that element of free will ceases to exist. Because of the intimidation, you cannot have free and fair elections. Okay. It's not a conducive environment.
Indeed. As much as you're a national leader, Wamalwa, at the end of the day, politicians have a political base.
Yes.
I'd assume your political base is in Western Kenya. True or false?
I would say that is where I come from. And of course, as I seek presidency, they say charity begins at home. Of course, I've said we, the leaders, are divided, but the people are not.
Okay.
Largely, I'm very proud as the party leader of DAP Kenya, that DAP Kenya is actually one of the founders of the one-term movement. And the one-term message has resonated very strongly with not just the Western region, but across the country.
Okay.
The other issue that I'm proud of is that when we started this journey and we received the second deputy president, after impeachment, he came to join us, I remember on 27th of January 2025 last year. And my brother Kalonzo and I received him at the DAP headquarters in Karen, Chui House. When we started that journey, it was a lonely journey at first because of the trauma the deputy president had gone through, the betrayal he had felt. But many others joined along the way, including our brother Matiang'i, who was in New York then. He came and joined. We have worked with our sister Martha Karua. The team is growing. And right now, as we speak, we see ODM, which was quite strong in the Western region, that Lake Basin region, splitting into two, into Linda Mwananchi and Linda Ground. And we're very proud of our brothers, particularly the young people that Baba had mentored, Kina Sifuna, Kina Babo Wino, Kina Kaleba Misi, we have Kina Otsosi, and the veteran, the man I really respect, James Agri Bobo Rengo. I think if there's one politician who has been consistent and as constant as the Northern Star is James Orengo, always. We see a strong team that is saying one term but within ODM. Then we have the other faction of Oburu and Gladys Wanga that were defending walikuwa na Linda Ground Homa Bay. But we are telling them wasilinde ground in that style. Musilinde ground through violence. Just allow the one-termers to sell their policies and their agenda. You also sell it. Let the people of Homa Bay, let the people of that county and this country decide, not violence. So we see ODM splitting into two. And we see as Linda Mwananchi moves out, and we join hands. We see the path of 202, of NAK, NK, of Wamalwa, Ngilu, and Kibaki. And then with Raila moving out of government, with Kalonzo, Mudia Wori, Professor Saitoti, and joining NK, and NAK forming the next government. I see history repeating itself. And that is why I'm very proud that in my region, the one-term seed has taken root. Of course, we expect serious competition. When we faced off in Malava, you saw the resources deployed by the government because they know one of the main battlegrounds is going to be Western Kenya. As DAP Kenya, we are the only party remaining in the region that has been consistent, that has not been bought. Everyone else has now aligned with the government of the day. But when we faced off in Malava, do you know what the difference was? Was like 1,000 votes. They got 21,000, we got 20,000. But we know what happened. We won, but we were denied victory. We are expecting that going into this election, what happened in Olkalau is most likely to happen, not just in Western, but across this country, because Kenyans are becoming bolder in terms of not just voting, but in terms of looking at after their vote. This is what we didn't do in Malava. We won, but we do not guard our vote. Yes.
Well, I hope you'll be guarding the vote within the confines of the rule of law.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
As we finalize, I have to ask this because DAP Kenya prides itself, as we've mentioned, and we've set the stage. You start at home, but you shouldn't end there.
No, we'll go across.
Definitely.
We're a national party, actually. Out of 95 parties, DAP Kenya is the 5th largest party in Kenya. The first one is UDA, the ruling party. The second one is ODM. The third one is Jubilee. Then you have Wiper. And the DAP comes immediately after Wiper. If you look at the registrar of political parties, the sharing of the political fund, it is according to the party strength across. And we have, many people have looked at our party as a Luhya party or as a Western party, but we are a national party. We have elected members all the way in Mandera, in Kisii, across the country. And we intend to grow bigger because we were launched on the eve of the last election in December 2021. And you remember the election was in 2022. So we are positioning ourselves to do better in this election.
The rivals or perhaps allies of yours who are equally positioning themselves for the Western Kenya spoils. Perhaps borrowing from what Edwin Sifuna has done in recent past. We've seen a sort of concerted effort towards galvanizing, supporting Western Kenya. Where does that leave DAP Kenya?
DAP was in alliance with ODM. Edwin Sifuna is still ODM. Linda Mwananchi is basically a faction of ODM. And I think he's been very strategic in terms of inheriting the ODM base. And we see him doing very well. And we've been talking and strategizing with him so that just the way Kaleba Misi has moved out of ODM and therefore moved out of the broad base, we see Ndindi Nyoro has also moved out of UDA and therefore moved out of the broad base. We're going to see many more people, including Edwin Sifuna and his team.
Wouldn't that take a chunk of your support base?
Not really, because DAP was there and ODM was there. And we're in the same alliance. So we will be ultimately in the same coalition. Because Linda Mwananchi are one-termers, and we in the United Opposition, where DAP is, we are one-termers. So we are going to become one team. So I believe our focus would be on how to ensure UDA does not get seats in Western. So in that respect, I don't look at Sifuna as a competitor. I look at him as an ally and a partner who will be complementing each other in harmonizing our strengths against UDA. Because UDA and ODM are now combining into one coalition. And you saw them in Naivasha because they're going past the pre-wedding now. I think Naivasha was a pre-wedding. Now they have formed a wedding committee to formalize. So you will see us also just this coming week after Sunday, after the anniversary of our late brother on Sunday. From Monday we are going into a retreat now to now start looking at...
As the opposition or as a party?
Yes, as the opposition, as the United Alternative Government. And we'll also be engaging our brothers in Linda Mwananchi. You saw us the other day together addressing the issue of goonism together. So you're going to see us more into building towards a one team, not just one term, but one term becoming one team. So we're working towards that.
As we finalize, and this is the last question, because perhaps it's the most weighty, and we've seen senior government officials strongly criticize the United Opposition leaders, accusing you of a clear policy vision, an alternative economic manifesto, constructive development agenda. And they argue that you're heavy on divisive rhetoric, ethnic mobilization, and political noise. In fact, in Naivasha, President William Ruto himself said the alternative is hard to fathom, referring to the United Opposition. So this is your chance. Are you light on agenda, policy? Why is it that there's a perception out there that this is the case?
I think, first of all, President William Ruto needs to remember that we were his colleagues in the Kibaki cabinet. We're contemporaries. He held a docket. There are some he didn't do very well, he was sacked. The others he did well. We held senior dockets. And we could not have served under Kibaki kama hatukuwa na akili, if we're as useless as he thinks we are. Secondly, we have served with him in the Uhuru administration. He knows our capacity. We know his capacity. So therefore, this chest thumping that he does sometimes is just playing to the gallery. But he knows that those of us in the opposition, in fact, when he says, he shudders to think the one-term team could take this thing. It's because he knows the capacity. What team are we talking about? We're talking about 2 deputy presidents. Rigathi Gachagua, who was the 2nd deputy president, Kalonzo Musyoka, who was the 10th vice president. We are talking about 2 ministers of justice, Wamalwa, Karua. You're talking about the former chief justice. You're talking about the former attorney general. You're talking about 2 ministers who are in charge of the security sector in this country, Matiang'i Interior, Wamalwa Defense. These are not jokers. They're not just pedestrians that you can say, I want to kill. These are Kenyans who are seasoned, who have served this country, who have track records. So he's playing to the gallery, but he knows the team he is dealing with, because of the policies we have led in different sectors across the board. We know the policies he tried to introduce in the last 4 years. And what we are seeing is a failed regime with a litany of failed policies. Look at the health sector. I saw him, speak in the health summit. It's not for you, William Ruto, to tell us Shah is working. It's for that Mama Mboga there in Mumias, who used to go to St. Mary's Hospital. Even during the colonial times, St. Mary's Hospital was working in Mumias. Even during the Jomo Kenyatta days, Moi's days, Kibaki's days, Uhuru's days, St. Mary's Hospital collapsed during your watch. And you go to Mumias, and not just Mumias, several other places in this country. So you sit and see a stand master, very good at PR, but when you listen to the courts, there's a ruling of the court saying this SHA thing has structural defects. It is not working. This is an institution. This is not Wamalwa, Hana Akili, maybe Hailewi, ama huyu Matiang'i, or huyu Kalonzo. It's the High Court of Kenya.
Okay.
And you are given days to address those issues. You come to a committee of parliament. Dr. Nyikal is one of the most respected professionals in the health sector. He's the chair of the health committee. This is a committee of parliament saying this SHA thing is unsustainable, it's not working. This is not the brainless opposition talking. It's an institution called parliament questioning your policies that you have introduced in the system that you introduced, which costed taxpayers almost 104 billion, and it's not working. So all we are saying
that, by the way.
Fine, it is good for him to deny, but when you have parliament, you have the judiciary speaking about the failures of a system and a policy, and Kenyans crying out, and governors who are the bearers of this burden now saying it's not working, then it's not enough. It doesn't matter how many times you shout it's working. We're on an election year. People are going to look at your record. And yes, you say let us judge you by your track record. We are going to look at the education sector. We are going to grade your health sector. We are going to look at the issues of governance, the blood on your hands of the young people that have died since you took power, in the violation of human rights, the abductions that have gone on, the extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, and the levels of corruption.
Okay.
We are saying, when these young people come out to call for accountability, good governance, and end to this corruption and these killings, the year is here. And 75% of this country, according to the latest opinion polling across board, many Kenyans believe the country is headed in the wrong direction because of your policies, wrong policies, and 75% of Kenyans are not with you, Mr. President. And it's a matter of a few months. Chickens are coming home to roost. So sing hallelujah and how well you have done with your SHA and housing levy and all this. But the day of reckoning is coming with that Kenyan voter, 75% of whom feel you should go home one time because of your failed promises, failed policies, human runaway insecurity, and human rights abuses. So for us tonight, I can look every Kenyan in the eye and tell them, as your loyal opposition, we can feel you, we can hear you. We are going to unite, and we are going to give you one candidate who is going to send William Ruto home one time. On this, we will not let you down.
And you'll give policy alternatives.
We have clear policy alternatives, and from day one, we know what we want to do in the first 100 days, and we are now going into a retreat where we'll, just the way they have said, they have a 10-member committee working on their manifesto.
Yeah.
We have our team of experts that we are engaging with. Linda Mwananchi are in a retreat, going into a retreat with the experts. We are going into a retreat with our experts. We will be coming together, the two teams now, to combine, just the way ODM and UDA have combined. We'll have a team, one team, that when we present our candidate and our lineup in our alternative policies and manifesto, Kenyans will look at this and say, this is the better option, like we call Safaricom. I believe so. But let's do it in a peaceful environment.
Yes, yes.
And not as enemies, but as competitors.
Okay.
And let Kenyans decide. Let us not shed blood and use goons to kill each other.
All right.
Let's sell our policies and we let the people decide. As Kenneth Matiba said, that is the essence of democracy. Thank you.
Asante sana. Eugene Wamalwa, party leader, DAP Kenya, former cabinet secretary and United Alternative Government co-principal. A lot we've talked about. I guess we'll be observing the next week and the weeks to come to see if you guys have your affairs in order, because Kenyans are yearning perhaps for leadership change.
Yes.
Are you the alternative?
We are, and I'm presenting myself. But we have also agreed that if our team feels there's a better candidate, if they say it is Matiang'i or Kalonzo or Sifuna or Rigiji or Karua, I'll be the first one to support that candidate. But we are not going to let Kenyans down, because everywhere we've gone, from the coast to the mountain to the lake, they are saying, please stick together, give us one candidate. Tonight, may I say this to you? We will not let you down.
Indeed. Let's see how the cookie crumbles. Asante sana for your time. That's all we had for you right here on KTN Prime, an informative discussion focusing not on personalities, but on the issues that are bedeviling the country, from issues of goonism to what exactly the united opposition is fronting as either its candidate, but equally the manifesto. And as you've heard, they're retreating to finalize on those details. And of course, they'll be fronting it to the Kenyans, who'll be the decider, the judge at the end of the day on the second Tuesday of August next year. My name is Jesse Rogers. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good evening.